happening between Burkina Faso and Ghana that could change the future of West Africa? It is not a new gold mine, it is not another military agreement, and it's not just another political speech. It is a railway that could begin at the port of Tema in Ghana, travel north across the country, cross the border into Burkina Faso, and finally reach the capital city of Ouagadougou. On a map, it may look like nothing more than a long line, but for the people of Burkina Faso, that line could become an escape route from one of the country's oldest economic problems. Burkina Faso has no sea, it has no ocean, it has no port where a large cargo ship can arrive directly from Asia, Europe, America, or another part of Africa. Every container entering Burkina Faso must first land in another country. Every liter of imported fuel, every bag of rice, every machine used in a factory, every piece of hospital equipment, every vehicle, every sheet of roofing materials, all of it must pass through somebody else's port before traveling hundreds of kilometers by road into Burkina Faso. That means Burkina Faso does not completely control the road connecting it to the world. But the railway being planned with Ghana could begin to change that. And this is not only the story of steel, trains and railway stations. It is a story about geography. It is a story about African cooperation. It is a story about Thomas Sankara's unfinished dream. And this story is about whether Captain Ibrahim Traoré can achieve something that many Burkinabe leaders before him could not. This is AfriArise, and today we are looking at the railway that could give Burkina Faso a new road to the sea. Burkina Faso sits in the heart of West Africa. It shares borders with 6 countries, and yet it does not touch the Atlantic Ocean. The nearest major ports are located in countries such as Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, and Benin. This means when goods arrive at the coast, the journey is not over. In many cases, it has only just begun. A container can leave Tema port in Ghana and travel more than 1,000 kilometers before reaching Ouagadougou. On a clear road, the journey should not be impossible, but transporting goods across West Africa is not only about distance. There are custom checks, there are border documents, there are police and security checkpoints, there are damaged roads, there are long queues of trucks, there are delays at the ports, and sometimes drivers must wait for hours or even days before they are allowed to continue their journey. Every delay has a price. The driver must be paid. The trucks need more fuel. The goods may need to be stored. Food can spoil. Businesses may run out of materials. And when the final container arrives in Ouagadougou, all these extra costs are added to the price that ordinary people must pay. This is what being landlocked can mean in daily life. It means a mother may pay more for imported goods. A farmer may pay more for machinery. A builder may pay more for cement and roofing sheets. A hospital may pay more for medical equipment. And a small business may struggle to compete with businesses in countries that have direct access to a port. Geography becomes a silent tax. Burkina Faso cannot move itself closer to the ocean, but it can build a faster and more dependable connection to it. That is where Ghana enters the story. Ghana has one of West Africa's most important ports at Tema. Tema is connected to major international shipping routes, and it already handles goods traveling to countries beyond Ghana's borders. For years, Ghana and Burkina Faso have discussed building a standard gauge railway connecting Tema to Ouagadougou. Different planning documents have given different route lengths depending on the exact paths and the sections included. But the complete journey is generally expected to cover roughly 1,000 kilometers or more. It will pass through communities in Ghana before crossing the northern border and continuing into Burkina Faso. The final vision is simple. Cargo will arrive by ship at the Tema port, instead of placing almost everything on trucks for the long journey north. Containers could be loaded onto freight trains. Those trains could carry fuel, food, construction materials, and industrial equipment towards Burkina Faso. On the return journey, the railway could carry Burkinabe gold, cotton, livestock products, agricultural goods, and other exports towards the coast. One train can carry what would otherwise require many trucks. That could reduce pressure on roads, lower fuel use, reduce accidents, and make delivery times more predictable. But this railway is more than an idea on paper. Ghana has already completed the first major section. The Tema Railway stretches for about 97 kilometers from Tema towards Ghana's interior. It is Ghana's first modern gauge railway line and includes new stations, crossing and a large railway bridge over the Volta River. The line was officially inaugurated in 2024 and commercial services were activated afterwards. That means the first piece of the much larger connection already exists. However, it is important to understand the truth. The 97-kilometer section is only a small part of the full dream. Most of the railway towards northern Ghana and Ouagadougou has not yet been built. The remaining distance will require huge amounts of money, years of construction, political cooperation, and a strong security. So this is not a completed railway from Ghana to Burkina Faso. It is the beginning of a possible railway, and Africa has seen many beautiful beginnings that never reached their destination. Burkina Faso knows this better than most countries because this is not the first time its people have dreamed of building a railway that will change their future. The country already has an older railway connecting Ouagadougou to Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire. That line was built during French colonial rule. Construction began in the early 20th century and took decades to reach Ouagadougou. Like many colonial railways in Africa, its main purpose was not to unite African communities or build strong local industries. It was designed mainly to move raw materials and labor from the interior towards the coast. African resources moved out, foreign goods moved in, and the railway served the needs of the colonial economy. After the independence, the line remained important because it gave Burkina Faso access to the port of Abidjan. But it suffers from years of poor maintenance, weak investment, and management problems. Passenger services declined, many similar stations were closed. The railway continued to carry freight, but it never became the foundation for the industrial future that many Burkinabe people had hoped for. Then came Thomas Sankara. When Sankara became president in 1983, he believed that political independence meant very little without economic independence. A country could have its own flag, its own government, and its own national anthem, but still remain dependent on foreign money, foreign food, and foreign transport routes. Sankara wanted Burkina Faso to produce more of what it consumed. He encouraged people to wear locally made clothes. He promoted farming. He challenged foreign aid dependency, and he believed infrastructure should be built to serve the people and not only foreign companies. In 1985, Sankara launched what became known as the Battle of the Railway. The plan was to extend the railway northwards from Ouagadougou towards Kea and eventually towards Tambao. Tambao is an area believed to contain a large deposit of manganese, a mineral used in steel production. Sankara believed that if Burkina Faso could reach the mineral by rail, develop it responsibly and transport it to international markets, the revenue could support the country's development. But Burkina Faso did not have billions of dollars to spend, so Sankara turned to the people. Citizens volunteered. Workers, students, and villagers helped clear land and prepare the railway path. They worked under the sun with simple equipment. It was not perfect. It was not a modern construction project, but it carried a powerful message. Burkina Faso would not wait forever for someone else to build its future. The railway reached Kea, roughly 100 kilometers north of Ouagadougou, but it never reached Tambao. On October 15, 1987, Thomas Sankara was killed during the coup that brought Blaise Compaoré to power. The Great Railway campaign ended. The track towards Kaya remained, but the larger dream was left unfinished. For many Burkinabe people, the abandoned railway became more than just an infrastructure failure. It became a symbol of a path that the country might have followed. Decades later, another young army captain came to power, speaking the language of sovereignty and self-reliance. Captain Ibrahim Traoré seized power in September 2022 after Burkina Faso experienced its second military takeover in the same year. Like Sankara, Traoré speaks strongly about national dignity, local production, and reducing dependence on former colonial powers. His government has pushed for greater state control over strategic sectors, including gold and infrastructure. It also approved the creation of Faso Rail, a Burkina Faso company intended to support the development of the country's railway network and local production of railway materials. The message is clear. Burkina Faso does not only want foreign companies to arrive, build a railway and leave. It wants Burkinabe workers and businesses to take part. It wants local knowledge. It wants jobs. It wants some of the rails, sleepers, spare parts and equipment to be produced or maintained inside the country. That ambition is powerful. However, ambition and construction are not the same thing. Building a railway is one of the most expensive and difficult infrastructure projects any government can undertake. Land must be cleared, communities may need compensation, bridges must be constructed, stations must be built, drainage systems are needed, thousands of kilometers of steel, stone and concrete must be moved into place, trains and wagons must be purchased, engineers must be trained, and after the railway opens, it must be maintained every single day. A railway that is not properly maintained quickly becomes dangerous and unreliable. And there is the question of money. The complete Ghana-Burkina Faso connection could require several billion dollars. Burkina Faso cannot easily finance a project of that size alone. Ghana also faces its own financial pressures and has many other roads, railways, schools, hospitals and energy projects competing for public money. Private investors could become involved. African banks could offer support. International partners from Asia, Europe and the Middle East or other regions may provide loans and construction expertise. But investors do not only look at the beauty of a vision, they look at risk. They will ask whether enough freight would use the railway. They will ask whether Ghana and Burkina Faso will maintain the same agreements when governments change. They will ask whether the railway can make enough money to cover operating costs. They will ask whether the roads can be protected. That brings us to the most difficult challenge of all, security. Burkina Faso has been fighting armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State for years. Thousands of people have been killed. Many communities have been displaced. Roads have been attacked. Towns have sometimes been cut off from supplies. The proposed railway would enter Burkina Faso from the south, which has generally faced less violence than some parts of the north and east. But a railway is a fixed target. It cannot move away from danger. Tracks, bridges, stations and signaling systems must be protected across a very long distance. Even a small track on the bridge could stop trains from moving. Security is therefore not separate from the railway project. Security is one of the conditions that will decide whether the railway can succeed. There is also a complicated political question. Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger officially left ECOWAS in January 2025 and now cooperate through the Alliance of Sahel States. Leaving ECOWAS does not mean that all trade with neighboring countries has stopped. Ghana and Burkina Faso have continued to discuss stronger transport and economic cooperation, but railway success will require far more than friendly speeches between leaders. The two countries will need common customs systems, they will need agreements on tariffs, they will need rules for passengers and freight, they will need shared safety standards, they will need to decide who owns the trains, who repairs the trucks, and how revenue will be divided. Without those agreements, a train may move quickly across the land only to spend hours waiting at the border. Africa does not only suffer from missing infrastructure. Sometimes, Africa builds infrastructure but fails to remove the paperwork and political barriers around it. A railway can cross a border, but only cooperation can keep it moving. So why is this railway still worth pursuing? Because Burkina Faso's location could become an advantage instead of a weakness. Look again at the map. Burkina Faso sits between several important West African markets. If Ouagadougou becomes connected to Tema by a reliable standard gauge railway, the city could develop into a major inland freight center. Goods from the coast could travel to Ouagadougou and then continue towards Mali or Niger. Exports from the Sahel could travel south towards Ghana. Warehouses could be built. Processing factories could go around railway stations. Truck drivers could handle shorter regional journeys instead of traveling the entire distance to the coast. Businesses could store, package and process goods closer to where they are produced. The railway could also support cotton mills instead of simply exporting raw cotton. It could support food processing plants instead of allowing crops to spoil. It could help mining companies move equipment and products more efficiently. But none of this will happen automatically. A railway alone does not create development. If it only carries raw gold and cotton out of Burkina Faso while bringing finished foreign goods in it may repeat the same old pattern. The real success will come from what is built around the railway: factories, markets, warehouses, training centers, repair of workshops, local suppliers, new businesses, and jobs that allow African people to take part in the value chain. The railway must not become another path through which African wealth leaves the continent faster. It should become a path through which African countries trade more with one another and create more value at home. Other African railways show both the opportunity and the danger. Ethiopia built a modern railway from Addis Ababa to the port of Djibouti. The railway reduced a journey that once took days to less than a day for same freight services. But it also faced financial, technical and management challenges before local workers gained more operational control. Kenya built a standard gauge railway from Mombasa to Nairobi. It now carries millions of tons of cargo and millions of passengers, but the project also created heavy debts and continues to cause debate over costs, contracts and economic value. These examples teach an important lesson. A railway can transform transport, but a railway can also become a financial burden if the contracts are poor, if the debts are too high or the expected cargo never comes. Burkina Faso and Ghana must therefore avoid two dangerous mistakes. The first is refusing to build because the challenge appears too large. The second is building at any cost without protecting the public interest. Real sovereignty is not only about rejecting foreign influence, it is about negotiating wisely. It means knowing what the country can afford. It means publishing clear contracts. It means training local workers. It means preventing corruption. It means ensuring that future generations are not left with a railway they cannot maintain and a debt they cannot repay. This is why the Ghana-Burkina Faso Railway deserves both hope and careful examination. Supporters see a new economic lifeline for the Sahel. Critics see an expensive dream in a region facing insecurity and financial pressure. Both sides have a point. The railway could lower transport costs and open new markets, but the money is not fully secured. The entire route has not been constructed. Security remains a serious concern, and political promises can disappear when leaders change. Still, even major African projects once looked impossible. The African Union was once only an idea. The African Continental Free Trade Area was once only a proposal. Major ports, bridges and railways across the continent began as lines drawn on paper. The question is not whether the project is difficult, it is whether Ghana and Burkina Faso can turn a shared need into a shared commitment that survives politics, conflicts and time. Nearly 4 decades ago, Thomas Sankara asked his people to build a railway towards Burkina Faso's mineral wealth. They worked with their hands because they believed the railway represented freedom. Today, Burkina Faso is looking south instead of north. The destination is no longer Tambao, it is Tema. The tools are different, the partners are different, the political situation is different, but the question remains almost the same. Can a landlocked African nation build a reliable path to the sea and use that path to create real prosperity for its people? The fight first modern section has already been built in Ghana. The greater journey towards Ouagadougou remains unfinished, and perhaps this is the best way to understand this story. This is not yet a story of victory. It is not yet a story of failure. It is a test. A test of African cooperation, a test of political will, a test of financial discipline, and a test of whether infrastructure can serve the people rather than simply carry resources away from them. Because the true value of this railway will not be measured by how many trains arrive in Ouagadougou. It will be measured by how many jobs are created, how many businesses grow, how much cheaper it becomes to move African goods, how many young people gain useful skills, and how much more value Burkina Faso can create before its resources leave the country. At AfriArise, we believe Africa's future will not be built by speeches alone. It will be built through roads, power stations, farms, schools, factories, ports and railways that connect African people to African opportunity. The railway to Tema could become one of these projects, or it could become another abandoned promise. The tracks have started in Ghana. History is watching what will happen next. Do you believe the Tema-Ouagadougou railway will finally be completed? And if it is completed, do you believe it will truly improve the lives of ordinary people in Burkina Faso and across the Sahel? Share your thoughts in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to AfriArise, and join us as we tell the stories of the people, projects and ideas shaping Africa's future. Until next time, keep believing in Africa, because Africa is not waiting to rise. Africa is already rising. My name is Blessing Chris. See you in the next one.